So should you wait for the Z6 III? That depends. When is the Z6 III? How much is the Z6 III? What exactly is it? And what's your need? What's my need? I think there are quite a few questions around this, especially now that we have been hearing about the Z6 III for some time, but we haven't really heard about it. I think right now it's a complex decision because you've heard about the Z6 III enough, but then we haven't really heard about the Z6 III concretely enough. What matters is whether you should wait for the Z6 III or go for something right now. I think it's a very interesting question. Let's try and answer that. Let's start from the beginning. What do you expect the Z6 III to be? Do you expect it to be an entry-level all-round camera that will beat everything, all past Nikon cameras in autofocus and with new technologies, best in everything? Are you expecting it to beat all the competition like the Sony A7 IV, the R6 II, or even the Panasonic S5 Mark II or that X version? I think that's a very curious question. What do you want this camera to be? Now, there are two parts to it. You can imagine the camera to be something and it may never be that, or you have a specific need, and to that need you expect the camera to meet those demands because it's only fair to meet those demands at $2,000 to $2,500 US. So I think I'm going to go for the second one. I think most of us have an understanding of what this kind of camera should provide us and what we can expect from something like this in 2024. Let's start with the resolution. I think we're not expecting the Z6 III to be a high resolution camera, meaning 40 megapixels and above. But we are expecting the Z6 III to be a 24 megapixel plus camera. We will be happy if it's a 30 megapixel camera or a 33, 34 megapixel camera. A lot of people will actually be disappointed if it's a 24 megapixels. Let's just face that fact. A lot of people will be disappointed if it's a 24 megapixel camera because the A7 IV has kind of created a benchmark in resolution, which is, the argument is not how many percentage higher megapixel does a 34 megapixel sensor has over a 24 one. The argument is that you have a bit more to let go when you need to crop. That's all. A bit more to let go. And that makes sense because yes, you want the Z6 III to be in 2024 a entry-level all-round camera. It is the A1 and Z9 of mid-tier cameras, okay? And the entry-level camera, which is supposed to be a pure breed entry-level camera, that is your R8, that is your Z5 Mark II. So I expect the Z6 III to do a lot of things for most people. So a lot of people will actually buy a couple of them, okay? Or a lot of them will actually buy a Z8, will have a Z8 or a Z9 and use the Z6 III as a second body. Either way, the Z6 III will have to be a camera that's a very good all-round camera, both in stills, which means good dynamic range and very good autofocus in stills, fast shooting and decent megapixels, realizing that this is 2024. Resolution is something that a lot of people will go for and are expecting in a Z6 III. Hey, a slight interruption at this point. Look, I have been putting a lot of effort to this channel. I'm taking this a lot more seriously. So I would like your support. If you like this video, like the video, maybe write a comment. If you have to say anything about this video, subscribe to the channel. And if you can spare, if you're willing to help, maybe leave a coffee tip. Maybe leave a tea tip in the form of a super thanks. Let's get back to the video. You're expecting the autofocus system to be top notch because it was in December 2021 that the Z9 came out with the new processor and the new autofocus system. Z8 came out last year around this time, almost about a year back. And that has amazing autofocus as well. And with the firmware version 2 on the Z8 and version 4 on the Z9, you have some of the best AF systems, AF performance on those two cameras. But a year has passed, right? From 2021 to 2024 right now, it's been almost 2.5 years that we have seen the XP7 processor in action. We've seen that in ZF as well. So it is natural to expect that we're going to see even better, more mature autofocus in the Z6 III. Absolutely. And remember, the Z8 and the Z9 has bird eye autofocus, which is fantastic. The ZF doesn't have it. I mean, the ZF can do birding and very good wildlife, very good sport shooting very well, but it's just not as good as the Z8 or the Z9. Remember that. That's something to note. So you would expect that sort of autofocus as well, right? You would also want a lot of customizability, a lot of controls, a very good grip, slightly better built body. You probably want fantastic video capabilities in the Z6 III, like NRAW, like 6K, stuff like that. Even better stabilization than the ZF. So we have a very clear understanding. We have a very clear understanding of what we expect the Z6 III to be. And I think some of the expectations are a bit too much. I think the IBIS is going to be better. I think there's a chance that the EVF is going to be better. The sensor is not going to be a stacked sensor. I mean, if Nikon does it, kudos to them, and I'll be very surprised. But I'm not expecting it to have a stacked sensor. What I'm trying to tell you is that with all these expectations, it sounds like what you're looking for is a very close cousin of the Z8. And that's exactly what I wanted when I wanted the Z8 to come out. I wanted the Z8 to come out and I wanted the Z8 to be exactly like the Z9. And Nikon said, hey, here you go. This is the mini Z9 and I love it, right? And we have been hearing that the Z6 III is going to be a mini Z8 as well. So it sounds like Nikon is really going to give a lot of love to the Z6 III. I'm just not sure that Nikon is going to make a Z8 in that different body. I don't think the compromises on the Z6 III is going to be as minimal on the Z8 compared to the Z9. I think the gap between the Z9 and the Z8 is very small. But I think this gap between the Z6 III and the Z8 is going to be slightly higher. There's going to be some areas where the Z8, Z6 III will outperform the Z8 because it just probably going to be a new generation of hardware. So I think the IBIS is going to be better. There is a chance that the EVF is going to be higher resolution. Apart from that, the fundamental structure and hardware of the rest of the body is not going to match the Z8. I don't expect it to. The Z8 does not match the build quality of the Z9. The Z8 does not match the heat endurance capability of the Z9. The Z8 does not have a battery as large as the Z9, but it did come with a new sort of, power delivery USB-C slot. All right, dedicated PD power delivery slot. The screen is the same. The top dial of most of the stuff here is very similar. It's very pro build. I don't think you're going to get a pro build on the Z6 III. You're going to get a version of the Z6 or Z6 II slightly improved. All in all, what I'm trying to say is that if you have waited so long and you know that you're going to spend about $2,500 to get the Z6 III, and we still don't know when exactly the Z6 III is going to come out, and we see Canon sort of is probably going to launch the R5 II and all that. So Nikon Nikon could delay it further. Right now we're getting a lot of very good deals on the Z8. So you see, that makes a lot of sense because time has its own value. Time and money have interchangeable value, honestly. What if the Z6 III comes out in the next 3 months and it's going to be a hit and a lot of people are going to just queue up and line up for it, and then you'll essentially have to wait. A lot of you will have to wait. I remember when the Z8 came out, when the Z9 came out, a lot of those long lenses, the 180 to 600 came out. So many of us actually had to wait to get our hands on these products, just because they're very popular and Nikon could not immediately supply them. Even if Nikon really stocks up and then launches the Z6 III, I think there will be like the first batch is going to be over like in the first week, and then you'll have to wait for a month, and then the second batch will again be over in a week, and then you'll have to wait for another couple of months. So just look what's happening with the Fuji X100 VI. So I think, and for a camera that is so highly anticipated for such a long time, the amount of people who will actually shift not only from Nikon mirrorless, but from Nikon DSLR and from Sony, from Canon, from Fuji, lots of people will actually shift to are likely to shift to that camera, because just the way that camera will be priced and positioned. So I think it, many of you may have to actually wait for like 7, 8, 9 months. And does it really make sense to wait that long? And if you're not the lucky one, and if you've been already waiting, and if that has been impacting your workflow, I think it makes sense to kind of consider the Z8 right now, because you can get it used and you can get a very good deal, and you can buy a brand new one at $500 off. That's a great opportunity to get the Z8 at a very low cost. Well, but it really depends on how you look at it. If you're willing to wait and save that time, save that money, great. If you want to save time and spend that little extra money and get the Z8, makes sense. But my guess is that a lot of you, if any of you get the Z8, you may never actually go for the Z6III. You may only go for it if you need another extra camera, not because you wanted a primary camera. Because once you have the Z8, you can do everything with the Z8. So that's the beauty of buying the Z8 right now. Do not also underestimate the ZF. The Nikon ZF is a very powerful camera with fantastic stabilization, beautiful image quality, very, very good autofocus, especially low light autofocus. Yes, there are some lenses that you cannot use on the ZF, and those lenses are like really large lenses. Although you can do birding, like I have done a video, you can see it. I'll put the link to that video somewhere. You can do very good sports shooting and wildlife and birding with the ZF, which just tells you that it's got a very good autofocus system. But it's not very convenient to do so. But there are very good lenses and tiny lenses available for ZF on the Z mount. You have the 40, you have the 26, you have the 28, you have the 50. You can use all the 1.8 primes easily on the ZF. You can also use the 28 to 70 2.8. That's a small 2.8 zoom. You can use the 24 to 70 f4. You can use the 24 to 120 f4. Very usable, very easily usable on the ZF. You can use the 70 to 180 2.8 on the ZF. Again, easily usable. For most cases, for most of the lenses can be used on the ZF without a problem. Yes, it will be difficult to use the 1.2 lenses. It will be difficult to use the NOC. It will be difficult to use something like the 400 2.8 or the 600 f4. I mean, that's understandable. But then you don't buy the ZF to obviously use those kind of lenses. But for most situations, events, weddings, food photography, travel photography, for most scenarios, the ZF is good enough. You don't have to necessarily wait for the Z6III. If waiting for that time means you losing out on opportunities, you missing out on that trip with a new camera, or getting that very important assignment done with a camera that you would like to shoot with, you really don't need to necessarily look at Canon or Sony or Panasonic or Fuji if you're stuck with the Z6 II right now. I think there are options, very good options in the form of the ZF and the Z8. Let me know what your approach is to this. Let me know what you're thinking about it. I think it's a complex conversation, and there is no easy and straightforward answer. So that's why I made this video. I'm very curious to actually see how long people expect the Z6III to take to come to the market, and what's your approach till the time the Z6III comes out. What are you doing? What's your hack? What's your solve? Now, if you're new to the channel, like the video. If you like it, subscribe to help the channel grow to 10,000 subscribers. So subscribe to the channel, and I'm going to see you soon with another one.